Welcome to Sit Around the Fire, the podcast dedicated to the men and women on the front lines, first responders, military personnel, and their families. I'm your host, Ashley Dillard, a retired firefighter paramedic turned full-time mental health professional. My passion is helping the helpers. Together, we'll explore the challenges, the triumphs, and the real stories behind the uniform. In each episode, we'll talk about mental, physical, and spiritual wellness, along with the unique culture that comes along with serving in a high-stress environment. From building strong relationships to navigating the weight of the job, this is a space where we can be real, share experiences, and support one another. Whether you're on the front lines yourself or you're supporting someone who is, this is a podcast to remind you that you are not alone. So grab a seat, pull up to the fire, and let's get into it. Welcome, Egan, to the Sit Around the Fire podcast. Like we were chatting before, I'm super excited to finally have our conversation together. And when I had the opportunity to meet you and listen to your story at the PSPSA conference, it was super impactful for me. And I just thought, like, your story is incredibly impactful and the work you're doing now is so impactful. And so I thought it was a very good fit to get your story out there and get more people in touch with you and hear from you. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I always like to start with kind of like the big hitter is what out of your story and our discussion today is what do you want that person listening to walk away with today?
I think the biggest thing that I like to, kind of my mission is to normalize kind of what we experience as first responders, because that wasn't passed on to me. And things can happen, not necessarily they're going to happen to you, but there's another side to that too. It's not just you're broken. It's not that just something's wrong with you. There's not just a dead end street. There's a lots of hope. There's lots, even more resources coming, and it's completely in your hands. And that's something I do as a health coach too. Is just understanding that you have the power to change things if you want them, and there's lots of resources available. So I would, it's when I teach in the academy, as I always say, we demonize stress and stuff, but it's actually a very good thing. But it's what you walk away with and understanding of it. So it's just having other tools in the toolbox, and coming out the other side. And what you want to do with those tools is entirely up to you. But there's a lot of things out there, and there's growth at the end of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. Like you highlighted understanding stress, which I don't think is something we do very often or we know how to do that. So I love it.
Great.
Well, tell us a little bit, before we dive into your story, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you are and all the things around you.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So my name's Egan De Los Cobos. I am now 44 years old. I have a wife. I have three kids. I have a 14-year-old son from a previous relationship, and then I have two daughters that are 6 and 4 currently, but their birthdays are coming up. So I have a family that I'm young family, and a teenager I'm navigating and doing all that stuff. So that's my kind of my personal life. And also personally, I like to do and don't do as much as enjoy the ocean and surfing. So that's kind of my personal side of my life that I like to do. And then I have kind of the professional side as well too. So I've been in the fire service. I started pretty young. I was 18 years old when I started in the fire service. I just kind of went through kind of college. I started college, I should say, because I was 18. I was 17 when I started college, and then fell into it. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I kind of fell into the fire service. My uncle was active at the time, LA City Fire. So he's the one who kind of sold me on it and did the EMT class, did all that. And I actually got a really good grade, which I was never an amazing student. I was an okay student and I did really good. So I'm like, well, maybe there's something to this. Fell in love with emergency kind of medicine stuff. Did EMT class, academy, got hired as a paid call firefighter at 18 years old. and then kind of pursued that path, and then all the way up into my current agency I've been with for 18 years as a firefighter paramedic, which I still hold that to this day. And then also I've been on the peer support team now it's going on, this is my fifth year. And then I assumed actually the role as peer support coordinator for my agency as well. So I've been undertaking that for the last almost 6 months. So assuming kind of that role. And so I do that. And then we'll get into my story too, but obviously on my days off, when I have time, obviously too, is I run a business too, and I have a health coaching business too, and I coach lots people, first responders, not first responders, that are struggling with similar things that I suffered with, which I'll get into too. So that's kind of a passion of mine too, is just sharing that, and it all ties into this whole stress, mental health, physical health, and all that stuff. We'll talk about too. So
Yeah.
I'm busy, but I tell people I have a passion for health on and off duty, and that's just it's a hobby and it's a passion of mine, and I like to do that and share that too. So that's and bolts about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love your passion behind it all. Like it's so palpable and you can feel how important it is to you. And I know like your story plays huge into that, but it's just cool to watch and see all the things that you're doing. And 18 to 44, that's a lot of years.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't really do the math till you said
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's been, a little over 25 years exposed to the fire service. So
Yeah.
it's crazy to think, 1999, when I say that, I'm like, oh my gosh. That was a while ago. I was, pre 9/11 and everything too. So I was in the fire
Right.
service, introduced at least to the fire service prior to 9/11, which seems like a long time ago. I don't feel that old, but
Yeah.
apparently I'm there.
I hear you. I know. I always love to like I have such a special place for fellow firefighter paramedics. I'm like, yes. I don't know. We have a special bond. We've been through paramedic school, which is a
Oh
whole
yeah.
nother adventure.
Oh, totally. Yep.
Yes. So, well, if you feel good tapping into your story and kind of
Okay.
sharing a little bit about it, I first just want to say like how grateful I am and the audience is for you being able to share it. And I know that it'll be like so impactful for those hearing it, and how you've come across the other side. But
Okay.
if you're ready, then let's go there.
Sure. So like I mentioned, I started early in the fire service, and throughout my early part of my career, so I'd say 18 to like early 30s, I was just like everyone else. I felt like I was doing all those things that I was supposed to do to stay healthy. Where I would exercise, I'd try to eat right, I did all those things. And also, leading up to that too, was like I mentioned, I started in the fire service in literally the late 90s and early 2000s. And nobody really talked about the impacts of stress or the job, or what our susceptibility to any of those kinds of things were. So those never talked about. So, but overall, my mental physical health was completely fine up until 2013. So in 2013, my son, he was then 3 years old. I was on one of my days off. It's actually a vacation day that I took this day. But anyways, I took him to a grocery store, and in front of this grocery store is a coffee shop we'd go. And there's like a little patio that kind of butts up to the parking lot.
Hmm.
And there's also this little gazebo that we would sit in. And so I'd get my coffee. He'd get a chocolate croissant he loved. And we just kind of sit and hang out and talk about the day. And on this day, so the way this patio set up in this grocery store, it's right along a kind of a busy highway. So people come in kind of sometimes a high rate of speed. Anyways, so on this day, an elderly driver came into the parking lot. And the way this parking lot's set up is the handicap parking spot is directly in line with where the gazebo was, where we were sitting.
Mm.
And this elderly driver came in high rate of speed and knew they were coming in fast, and wanted to hit the brakes really fast, but they didn't. They hit the accelerator and they drove right through us.
Mm.
My son went one way, I went the other. And then when I came to, I couldn't find my son.
Mm.
So there's tables, chairs, all kinds of debris around. and I eventually find him, and he's lying face down, not moving, partially under the car. So in that moment, while I'm going to pick him up, I'm thinking, that's it. I've just witnessed my son get killed.
Mm.
I go down, pick him up, and he starts crying right away. So best cry I've ever heard. And
Yeah.
us in this line of work like to hear kids crying, especially when we get that call, because at least we know we can kind of work with that.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
pick him up and I hold him. And ironically, there's a picture of me holding him sitting on the ambulance gurney. And anyways, once I picked him up in that moment, I did not let him go for about an hour and 15 minutes till we were transported down to the trauma center, which is south of where I live, and we were evaluated at the hospital. And so the ER doctor had to pull him out of my hands, so I didn't let him go. And so pure miracle. So physically, we were totally fine.
Mm.
We had some bumps, bruises, scratches. They checked out my son. They checked me out. My legs were really like banged up and hurt. I thought they were broken when I first stood up with my son, but they weren't. So I was lucky. So long story short, we were discharged about 4 hours later, and I kind of wrote it off like we all go to those calls. It's like, holy crap, man, they lived, they survived. How lucky are they? And that's exactly how I felt. So I was been always been a person who more or less practices gratitude. I don't ever call it a practice. I'm just a grateful person. And that's kind of what I wrote it off as, is like, wow, we're super lucky to be alive. That's amazing. We're good to go. And that's what I thought. So about two to 3 weeks later, I'm noticing I'm starting to have some pain. So I started having some foot pain on both my feet, and then I noticed that my middle toes had swelled up the size of my big toes. I'm like, well, that seems really weird.
Yeah.
Maybe I broke them in the accident. So I went to the doctor, and they said, nope, it's just inflammation.
Hmm.
And so that kind of threw me off. But anyways, that was the first sign of my autoimmune disease that got triggered, of psoriatic arthritis. But I didn't know any of that. And none of this stuff that I'm about to talk about, I didn't know for years till I put it all together. So that was my first sign that physically something was going on in my body. So also after the accident, I knew it was significant. I was worried about my son and the impacts that maybe psychologically that could have. So I made an appointment for a therapist. Didn't know where to turn. We didn't have peer support. We didn't have nobody talk about mental health. But I knew something. I just wanted to make sure he's okay. So I called my insurance company. They found a local therapist, went to the therapist, and he evaluated my son and said, from what I can gather, he seems okay. He's all, but I'm worried about you. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm grateful, man. I see worse stuff like this all the time. I'm fine. And he said, I understand, but I want you to do something. And sadly, though, he said this kind of in a backhanded manner without explaining anything to me on my way out the door. He's like, I want you to do an assignment for me. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I want you to write a letter to your son as if he had died. And that kicked me in the stomach. And I'm like, what? So I thought about it on the way home. I'm driving. I'm like, why in the heck would this guy want me to write a letter to my son as if he had died? Why would I want to dwell on the fact that he died when he didn't? And so that was my first experience with therapy. And so I wrote it off as, that's it. Like, what a quack. Why would I want to dwell on this? This is bullshit. I ain't going back. And I didn't. I didn't go
Mhm.
back to him. And so I just kind of carried on. But nothing really got better. So about 6 months, within the first 6 months, I was having the foot pain, plantar fasciitis that led into really bad hip pain, so bad that I'd walk and it would literally, like, my bones would hit and I would give out and I'd like almost fall over. I couldn't
Jeez.
work some days. Um, and then that led into severe back pain, and I was seeing chiropractors, orthopedists. I even went down to UCLA twice, and they wanted to do surgery on me. Their solution to me was to cut my hip open from front to back, anterior to posterior, pull my femur in traction, and then grind down my femur head. So that was the solutions that I was getting from
Oh,
people, and all these doctors along the way. No fault of their own. I would say, hey, I got in this accident. Physically, we were okay, but I feel like my health really declined after this accident. Has it related? All of them told me no. But I felt in my gut that that wasn't correct. So just keep carrying on. So then I started developing psoriasis, which is like itchy, inflamed skin. And I attribute it to, especially firefighters understand this, is poison oak or poison ivy if you ever had it. And it doesn't go away though. So it's
Mm-hmm.
always on your body and it feels the same. It's just horrible. And that's what I started developing too. So my body's breaking down. I'm having all these things. I literally felt like I was a 90-year-old man trapped in a 33-year-old's body for years after this accident. So that's the physical side. So that was all going on.
Jeez.
And then I started noticing some mental health changes. Obviously, again, not putting it together, but looking back. So I started having hypervigilance, right? Just being hyper aware of my surroundings. And I thought, oh, rightfully so. I just got hit by a damn car in a parking lot. So now I'm even more hyper aware for my son, hyper aware of everything, of where I sit. Like I don't sit in front of buildings, like all these things. And I'm just like, well, it's my job, and what happened to me, it's normal, right? And to some degree, yes, but not to the extent that I was feeling. And so then I started having hypervigilance, anxiety, and then my sleep was interesting too. I always thought this was normal. You go to bed about 9, 10 o'clock, and then I just sit in my bed and think about what I needed to get done, how my son's doing, all this stuff, and then fall asleep maybe 1, 2 in the morning, wake up at 6 a.m. and do it all over again. I thought it was normal to get 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I thought I was totally fine to do that. But apparently, no, that's not right. And so I started having all these things, and then it kind of reached a breaking point. So my my son, he was now almost he's about 5 now, and it was my girlfriend at the time. We're living together, who's now my wife. But anyways, he was sitting on top of a bar stool. We were getting ready for dinner, and then he fell off this bar stool. And kids fall. Your nieces, nephews, you got kids, they fall down usually completely fine. But when he fell off of this bar stool, I thought he was dying in front of me. It was the weirdest thing. I literally just went over, rushed over to him, picked him up, and started crying unconsolably.
Mm.
I knew my reaction was over the top. I knew it was unreasonable, but I couldn't change that fact at all. It was like a physiological thing that came over me, and that's what PTSD is, as we know now. I didn't know it at the time. All I knew is that I felt completely out of control of my own body, and I can't live like this. Even my girlfriend at the time looked at me when I'm holding him crying. She's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I have no idea, but I just can't live like this anymore." So I had to think about it again, and I revisited therapy. And so, but when I say therapy, I already had a bad experience, right? I went through my insurance, found a therapist to me who wasn't worth a damn. So I went online and kind of found a local like conglomerate that had, and I live in a small town, so I had to find somebody that was closer, in my opinion, than I thought that was. And then I'm like, oh, trauma. I'm like, well, that sounds what I'm looking for. So I just found a therapist, shot in the dark, and it worked out great.
Wow.
But I didn't use my insurance. I paid cash. I burned the receipt. I didn't want anyone to know. And that's
Mm.
the other thing. So I'm going through this whole journey of my physical health breaking down. I can't work some days. And I'm having trouble sleeping, anxiety, all this stuff. And did I tell my captain? No. Did I tell
Mhm.
my chief? No. Did I tell anyone? I didn't tell anyone. I was scared shitless. I thought I would lose my job. I thought wouldn't be able to provide for my family. I didn't know what my life would look like. I had no idea. I have no other skills. I have this, I'm firefighter and paramedic, and that's it. That's all I got. So I was scared for lots of reasons. Number one, my health and my family, and then secondary, how would I provide or move on from this, and what would my life look like? So lots of fear surrounding this. So anyways, I made this appointment, found this therapist, and within about 20, 30 minutes of talking to me, and she told me, she's like, you got PTSD. And I'm like, wait. I'm like, I've heard of it, but isn't that for like military and people who have been to war and see really bad stuff? Like I was in an accident and I'm physically fine. Like no one died. And she's like, it doesn't matter. So that's not how your brain works. And then you're a first responder. So you've seen a lot of really bad stuff along the way, and that doesn't help. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
wow. Okay. Well, that's at least. So when I walked out of that office for the first time in several years, I finally had an answer to what my body was experiencing and what I felt in my gut that was tied to what was going on. So I finally had like a little bit of that weight that I was carrying around lifted off after walking out of that. So at least I had a direction. I didn't know what things would look like, but at least I had somebody who could put some pieces together for me and that can move on. So I underwent what's called EMDR, so eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it worked fantastic for me. It worked
Mm-hmm.
within just a few sessions. It was amazing. I always tell people if I could conceptualize first part is conceptualize like what the degree I was feeling. If I was a 10, within a few sessions, it brought it down to maybe a 3 or a 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of it had for me. And I always try to simplify things. So I'm a paramedic, so I want to know how things are going, but I'm also a firefighter, so I got to keep things super simple. And so I conceptualize what having PTSD is like carrying around a heavy box, or we like to say like the backpack, right? And we're putting stones in it. It's just a heavy weight you constantly carry and you can't put it down. So if I'm carrying this heavy box, I can't put it down. It's constantly in the way. It's affecting every aspect of my life. What EMDR did for me was allow me to go into that box, kind of sort it up, box it up, tape it, and go put it up on a shelf. And that box is always going to be around. But it's not a burden on me anymore, and I can access it if I need it, but it's not a weight on me any longer, and I can move on with my life and it's not interfering. So that's the best way I can kind of conceptualize what that did for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that kind of it was the turning point and the answer to kind of start my healing journey too. So do you want me to go into that aspect of it too, the physical side, or?
Yeah, let's I want to like just highlight a few things that you
Sure.
talked about and said because you threw out so much really good material and things. I just want to make sure people like hear some of the stuff you talked about. You use the phrase it's normal a few times, and I think that's important to highlight for not just first responders but really everybody in general is to stop thinking that these things are normal. The physical symptoms showing up, the constant ruminating thoughts, or the constant anxiety and depression, or irritability and anger. Like to stop saying that it is normal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And then you highlighted, which I'm sure you'll speak to again, but the sleep part of it, I think we also underrate so much of when our sleep is interrupted and we're not getting, I mean, we can only do so much on the job anyways, because know, when you're on call 24/7 or 48, whatever, however shifts work, you can only do so much. But when we start to see sleep shift at home in such a drastic way of where you're never really getting good sleep, that's a huge warning light showing up on the dashboard that there's stuff going on under the surface that's not being addressed. So, did you notice like with your like tell us more about the sleep side for you. Were you having nightmares or was it just something you just weren't able to go to sleep? The mind was too busy, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, that's a good point because I know, and that was something that kind of hung me up when I was looking into like stress. Like I'll talk about, flashbacks and nightmares, and I didn't really understand some of what that was experiencing. So the sleep. So I didn't have nightmares, and I always tell people, well, I think you have to fall asleep to have nightmares. So I think that was part of it. I just wasn't sleeping. So no, I didn't have nightmares, but I didn't sleep. And it was exactly what you're talking about, that racing mind. No different than as paramedics we go to maybe a critical call. It could be or running a code in the middle of the night. So try going back to sleep after, some gnarly call or something like that. It doesn't happen typically, right? We're still kind of going through the process and like ruminating about, oh, should I have done that? Should I have done this? And that was kind of what I did for years, I guess. And I thought I didn't think anything different because I think it's no different than, trying to kill the frog in the boiling water, they jump out, right? But you slowly turn up the heat over time. You don't even realize that you're getting killed. Like that's no different, I think, than a lot of us experience it. So granted, I had a line in the sand of something that felt wrong, but then it just went on for so long. I thought that was kind of normal, and it wasn't the cause, but it was a symptom of everything else that was kind of going on. So yeah, it was just the racing thoughts, and then I normalized it because right. So I was 30, that was when I was like 35, but I was 30, 33, 34, 35, those few years. But remember, I started at 18. So I carried a pager on my hip when I was 18, and I was used to getting up and getting my sleep broken for the first half of my entire life. So, over 15 years of like living off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I thought that was normal. I would do it all the time. My whole 20s, I think I was, I'd be stoked if I got 5, 6 hours of sleep and thought that was normal. So
Yeah.
I just look back on what what it was, and again, it wasn't the cause, but it was a symptom of what was going on, and then obviously my body breaking down and all these other things too. And when I coach people too, sleep is always and that's probably one of the most widely studied things currently right now in the fire
Mhm.
service. It's a really hot topic, and it should be. And like you mentioned, there's no perfect solution, but it's optimizing that and recognizing that. I think that was the problem that I made. I was just not recognizing what normal looks like, what optimal looks like. And then what also sleep does. So obviously the physical part of it too, but a lot of times if you can't fall asleep like I was doing, that's an experience of mental health, right? PTSD, and that's underlying too. So it's kind of twofold, and that's something that I am very passionate about, is that I don't delineate mental health and physical health because it's all intertwined and all related. There is no that was something that I always thought, like, oh, mental health, you just got something wrong in your brain. It's like, no, no, no. What goes on up here affects down here, and what's down here affects up here. It's all interrelated. We're not compartmentalized as much as our Western medicine thinks we are. Everything's related. So, and that was kind of that's my premise for a lot of things, and rightfully so. And finally, the studies. It's ironic because, like I mentioned, I told doctors all the time that, hey, I had this accident and now I have all these symptoms, especially autoimmune disease. I would literally like hand them like my symptoms, and they wouldn't say they would nobody diagnosed me for years.
Mhm.
Um, Even with the family history, and like I checked every box you could imagine. And then literally after I went through my whole journey, was able to heal and everything, a study just came out about nurses having autoimmune disease lupus that are
Yeah.
tied to PTSD. And I'm like, oh, look at this, doctors. Like there's a study right here.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm not crazy. So and that was the thing, is trusting how you feel, because you're the biggest advocate for yourself and your health, and not just because they're a doctor or something else. Not to badmouth any doctors, but they don't know what you're feeling. You do, and you trust in your own gut, what you feel, and you're ultimately responsible for your own health, not someone else.
Mhm. Yeah, and I heard so much of your story riddled with some of this frustration, like you just highlighted, of like saying, I don't feel good, like something is off, something is wrong, but not necessarily getting answers or getting support from the traditional side of things.
Hmm.
So, talk to the person who may be in this spot right now. Like, let's say they're feeling some physical symptoms of something, whether it's sleep or, irritable bowel syndrome or headaches, migraines, all any kind of symptom showing up, but isn't getting any good answers or any good relief. Like, speak to where they're at with their frustration right now. You guys, what if I told you that the key to overcoming anything in life starts with one simple question? What's your why? Your mindset shapes your reality. Your thoughts can fuel resilience, or they can truly hold you back. In this brand new series coming up, Mindset to Manifestations, we're diving deep into how you can shift your state, break free of fear and stress, and truly create the life that you want. In our first episode, we're talking about getting to know your why, because Viktor Frankl said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." We'll explore the science behind mindset, the power of thoughts, and how people like Frankel and Dr. Joe Dispenza prove that what we focus on can literally change our lives. So if you're ready to step into a new level of clarity and purpose, join me. New episode drops on Monday. Don't miss it. Subscribe now, follow along, and let's start changing our state together.
That's a great question. So it's I always tell like my clients too is like you have to be the own advocate for your own health, and if you're not getting the answers that you think you need, is find someone else because there's somebody else out there, and always always kind of look at kind of I always and that's a big thing. I'm a huge proponent, and that's probably something that isn't a shock value because I mean, shock value is the biggest thing out there when it comes to health. People go to Costco and they start pulling shit off the shelf and say, "Oh, this is horrible for you." I'm like, I'm not about that. And so those fundamental things, look into those first things. So we always, sleep, exercise, diet, stress, like the stress. If you don't have your stress under control, nothing else matters. You can take so much ashwagandha and all these other things. If your stress is not under control, it does not matter. If you exercise like crazy and your diet sucks, it does not matter. Like those are all the things that you need to kind of look at to start there. When it comes to the frustration is, so looking at what you're looking at. So for me, like I was going down all these specialists, which was good because that's what it looked like from the outside, right? So my skin issues, I went to a dermatologist, but what are they going to treat? They're going to treat your skin, but the underlying cause of the psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. What's an autoimmune disease? It's your immune health is messed up. Mm-hmm. So why don't we deal with the immune health? It's no different than you drive down this road and every time you come home, you have a flat tire. It's like, dang it, man. Every time I go down the road, I have a flat tire. Well, we can either keep changing the tire if you want to keep doing that, or maybe don't go down that road. Like, so you got to make decisions to go on a different path and look at what the underlying cause is too. So treat the underlying cause versus just the symptoms. And that's a lot of what we do is treat symptoms. So just looking at that and looking at if you're looking for like like a doctor or sort of specialist. I mean, you can go down. So my doctor, it's ironic too. So my doctor is an MD, well, she's a doctor of osteopathy. So she looks at the body as a whole, and starts with more natural too, which is awesome. I think every doctor should be this way. And so I really liked that. And she was the only doctor. It's funny because I told her my story. I've had, I don't know, 3 primary care since then. And I told her, I'm like, hey, this is my story. This is what we talk about right now, how my PTSD led into my autoimmune, all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, stress was all related to this, right? And she's like, oh yeah, 100%. She was the only, like, without a doubt. I'm like, that's what I was trying to tell her. And she's like, and she was flabbergasted that no other doctor like validated that at all. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, yes, like absolutely. Like how much it can wreak havoc on our body, the chronic stress and stuff. So it was pretty good. So that was that was after I already went through my healing journey, finding the right doctor. And the one doctor who ultimately diagnosed me was actually like that too, was more naturopath, and ultimately said, I'll put it all together. And the thing is so autoimmune is a kind of a blanket term for like lots of things, right? And so there's, in a vast majority of them are simply, they just put symptoms together of what you're telling them, and then they diagnose you. There's no specific test for like psoriatic arthritis or psoriasis like I have. There's not like a blood marker test that you're going to get. It's simply putting these symptoms together, and that's it. And so so a lot of people think that testing like blood tests and all this stuff can be helpful, but they're not the ultimate determinant of things too. Again, they're just a symptom of kind of what's going on, but they're not the end all be all. When I coach my clients too, it's just like, just stop thinking that you're missing just one thing.
Right.
It's not just one thing. I promise you, it's not just one thing. There's about 5 things that we can do to benefit that. And is there a cure? No, there's not going to be a cure. But for me, there's a way to live a normal normal life, and function and still work and be healthy, and move in the right direction too, and not be miserable every day or wondering what the future looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great reminding people or even maybe hearing it for the first time of how only treating your symptoms is a disservice to you because it's not really going to get at the root cause of whatever is going on. And that can be, like you reflected on, is from the medicine side of things, but also from the psychological therapy side of things too, is you can go see a therapist and sure, they can work on your anxiety, but your anxiety is just a symptom of the root cause. So if you're
Hmm.
never really dealing with what's underneath, like it's gonna come back and manifest. And the whole what you resist
Hmm.
persists type mentality is
Hmm.
100% what happens. But we have to deal with the memories, the trauma, the beliefs that are underneath the system altogether
Hmm.
before you're gonna get any real relief or healing out of any of it.
Hmm. And it's a great point. So, that underlying thing. So this just happened to me probably a year ago. So I did um, the first kind of formal mental health training, more or less. I teach stress first aid too. So our peer support team and stuff trained our department. So we have about 250 members, and so they all came through for a couple of weeks training everybody. And then a couple of the guys who were on my call, so they're the ones who helped me on that call. It was funny. He told me something that stuck out. So he's like, when he saw me on that call, and then he said when they put me on the gurney, he said that I was like the most angriest he's ever seen me in his life too. And I'm not an angry person. I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person, and he told me that. And he said you like you were like just so mad at the driver, like you were just so pissed off. I don't remember any of that. No, I
Mm.
don't have a single memory,
Wow.
a physical memory of that, but I remember um the of my body storing that. So I had
Mhm.
two things. One of anger. I remember when I got hit, I stood up and I held my son. I was pissed off. I wanted to punch the driver in the face. And then I had a second thought, my son and I almost died, and I got to get away from that. So those were the two distinct feelings I had at that moment, right when I grabbed my son.
Yep.
And that was the stuff that manifested in my body for the next 3 years, and I had no clue about that. So when I did the EMDR, I remember that coming out about the anger, and then I had this reoccurring subconscious thought. I don't remember it being consciously though, that my son was dead. My son was dead. Like I had this constantly ruminating, and what EMDR did was kind of reframe that. And every time I would kind of go to that place, I felt a tapping on my shoulder, and
Hmm.
it was my son saying, "I'm okay, I'm okay, okay." So it kind of just tweaks your brain to reframe it,
Yep.
to dissipate that anger and do that. And it was weird to hear that from somebody else saying how angry I was, because I'm like, well, that's what I felt in my body, but I couldn't express it. And EMDR brought that out without even me saying it, which is awesome about EMDR, right? Too. So that was funny that you mentioned like how it wasn't the sleep, it wasn't the hypervigilance per se, it wasn't all this stuff. It was what happened in that moment lodged a mental splinter in my brain that was, starting to get infected, and that's what brought out all those symptoms too. So, how everything's kind of intertwined.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole belief that you're not safe and your son's not safe. Like, and that's triggered everything, which is what happens to us all. Those beliefs that spur the thoughts, and then your emotions and actions are going to follow after that, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. And I like to talk to people a lot too about emotions because it comes up, and like there's a weird still, it's getting a lot better, but I still think there's a weird mentality around emotions in general, and is like, oh, you shouldn't feel these things, or like you definitely don't want to go there, just stuff it
Mm-hmm.
down, stuff it down. But it's like I relate it as like emotions are energy in motion. And so if you're not allowing them to move through your body and to process them, doesn't mean you always act on them. Like you're not allowed to be an asshole and just like be angry all the time, but like you have to let it move through, because if you just stifle that energy, like it's going to manifest in ways, whether you do have those anger outbursts or you aren't sleeping, you have insomnia, or your physical stuff that shows up, and really being okay with emotions are fine. They're meant to be there. They're
Hmm.
indicators for you to pay attention to what's going on under the surface, but you have to allow yourself to go there to actually process them. And like you mentioned, EMDR is a great way to do that. There's so many good, helpful techniques now. Even breath work is so powerful for that too,
Hmm.
is using your breath to allow you to move that energy through your body so it's not just getting stored, because it is a one-way street to a not fun place if you're just choosing to suppress your emotions and choose to not go there. Dive into a community where education meets connection. By joining our email list, you're not just signing up for updates or another message sent to your spam box. You're becoming part of a vibrant first responder family dedicated to growth and support. We're thrilled to announce that subscribers will receive exclusive access to our brand new worksheet, Mindsets to Mantras, designed to help you transform your mental state through intentional growth. This isn't just another piece of paper or another worksheet for you to complete. It's your first step towards mastering your own mindset. This worksheet is actually going to kick off our exciting new podcast series, Mindset and Manifestation, where we'll explore how to harness your own thoughts for real-world impact. Whether you're looking to improve your resilience on the job or just maybe find some balance in your personal life, this series is tailored for you. So don't miss out. Sign up for our email list now and elevate your journey as a first responder with tools, stories, and community support that really truly resonate.
Yeah, exactly. Just because you're not talking about or dealing with it doesn't mean it goes away. So,
Right. Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned which I really love and appreciate your thought around this fear that was showing up so heavily in everything that you do, and just highlighting that out of your story. But I want to transition to talk about the other side. And once you got some of help and some answers for what you were looking for. So tell us a little bit about like how things shifted for you, bringing you into the place of where you are now.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, the EMDR was kind of that jumping off point. I finally felt more comfortable in my own body. I wasn't crazy. I had I had an injury to my brain and the associating disorder with it. And it gave me hope to like, okay, this is something. It's no different. I attribute it like post traumatic stress injury. It's like an ACL injury, right? We tore our ACL, so that sucks, right? So it puts us down a little bit, but as long as we treat it accordingly, we can recover and or grow stronger, right? But no diet, breath work, supplements in the world is going to fix a torn ACL, right? We need professional help to get that jumping off point, and then we utilize all those tools to strengthen and move on from there. So I always try. That's why I always tell people you're not going to talk your way out of PTSD or something like that. And it's a clear line in the sand that we need to delineate. Is that you can do as much as there's lots of tools out there, but there's no tool to replace physical like therapy, EMDR, whatever that looks like for you, or inpatient treatment if you need it. Like none of this stuff's going to replace that when you need it to. So I went through that, and that kind of was allowed me to understand that what I was feeling was real, and I knew that stress was playing a role in my health. So I did what any good paramedic would, and I want to learn what the hell's going on in my body. What is going on? And so I tore into kind of everything that I knew about immune health because I have my autoimmune disease, psoriatic arthritis, and psoriasis. So I wanted to know, hey, what are the mechanisms? What's going on in my body that is potentiating this and making things worse? And so I kind of tore into everything that led me into obviously the gut health, mind body gut connection, how that interplays, and how stress plays a pivotal role, right, in our autonomic nervous system, and how nervous system dysregulation messes us up, right? So I always, again, I'm a firefighter. I got to keep it super simple, but I'm a paramedic, so I like to understand how things work. So it's the gas pedal and the brake, right? So we got the sympathetic, the fight or flight state. That's the accelerator on our car. And then we have the parasympathetic, the rest and digest state, and that's the brake pedal. The problem with us as first responders is we're jamming on the gas pedal 24/7, literally. So that's why we're, I think, more susceptible to some things too. We're exposed. So I also coach patients in first responders in inpatient treatment. So I always say this thing. So we always talk about that gas pedal. So we're constantly on. It's just our personality. Maybe there's caffeine, maybe there's nicotine, maybe there's alcohol involved too. Those are all things that can trigger that sympathetic response. And then we're not sleeping a lot, which again puts on that accelerator pedal. We default to a sympathetic state. And when I coach people too, it's like, just so you know, your body doesn't give a shit about your health goals, your weight goals, or anything else. Its only job in life is to keep you in survival mode. And in survival mode, you are just surviving. You're not getting healthier. You're breaking your body down. And that's when disease can set in. And so we're jamming on this. And then did I mention we go to really traumatic stuff all the time? So we have this just cascading effect of just jamming on this gas pedal all the time. And there's no perfect balance, just like any of this stuff. But the problem is in that heightened sympathetic state, PTSD is part of that too, right? So we have all these things going on. Is we're not healing, we're just surviving. And what happens is everything starts to break down. So when I coach clients too, I say there's 3 levels that you can be at any point in time for most people. So the survival state is you're just waking up, feeding your body, trying to sleep. That's it. Like you are not doing anything but surviving. And then we have the chronic low level inflammatory state. That's where disease kind of set in. We're kind of ebbing and flowing, kind of in and out of things, and just kind of going through life. And you may not recognize it. It's so subtle that you don't even recognize it. And then we can finally get down to that other state, which is actually healing. So working on your health goals, reversing disease processes, and actually thriving in life, you have to get out of that fight or flight state. And there's lots of ways to do that and support that too. But so that was kind of the crux of what I learned. And then obviously looking at how stress plays that role. So that, like I said, there's more finally studies coming out about this, about how the stress impacts the body, and understanding that too, because it's not just stress in the brain. Like, right, we think we're just like, oh, we're releasing these stress hormones. No, the stress hormones go everywhere and they affect everything. There's a slide that I show, and I think I showed it at PSPCA too, but it shows how stress affects the body. And the long and the short of it is there's nowhere it doesn't affect. It is the crux for so many disease processes, and those play a wreak havoc. And I always say, so there's a slide I put up, and it shows about like 9 aspects of the body that affects about 50 different conditions. And I say, so if you had all these conditions, let's just say you were having bad luck and you had all these conditions, and we say, well, what doctors would we see? We see cardiologists, rheumatologists, orthopedists, dermatologists, gastroenterologists, blah, 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 like all these doctors, right? But if stress was the only thing that was affecting it, why don't we deal with the stress and not just the symptoms? You have IBS, great. Don't just take something for your IBS. You have acid reflux, great. Don't just take something like that. It's a symptom of lots of other things that are going on. And so we have to deal with those things. So that's what I kind of tore into and understood that. So, and so kind of got into kind of gut health and what optimizes kind of that gut health, reducing stress, obviously therapy is part of it, and implementing all those things to look at. So the 5 main, or I think it's 5 that I can think of. But anyway, so stress management was key for me. Stress, sleep, diet, exercise, and hobbies too. Hobbies, and I say that because that is part of connection and healing and health. And when I coach people too, I ask them this question. So what do you do for you? And a lot of people say, oh, well, I was a painter or a musician. I'm like, well, when's the last time you did that? Oh, you know what? I don't remember the last time I did it. Like we fall into these little things that you don't even realize. And that kind of can help that healing of just where you're at. So there's just like dealing with those five fundamental things. So I tore into this stuff. And then just started implementing things and a lot of trial and error. A lot of things out there. I wish I would have found somebody who kind of went through my journey and could kind of help me coach me through too.
Right.
But I was able to navigate it and piecemeal things too. And I always say like and Jim Rome says it best too. So be a student, not a follower, right? So don't just follow somebody and do what they do, right? Pick and choose from other people and do what best for you. I can
Mhm.
tell you right now, like, oh, you should eat just chicken, broccoli, and that's it. It's like, but if you're not going to do that, what's the point of me telling you that? Like, you got to figure it out on your own. There's a lot of key concepts, but it's implementing those and what that looks like for you, because we're all individuals. So that's why I'm not big on crash diets or any of this stuff. Why? Because they don't sustain. They're not sustainable. So I want
Right.
something that you can implement, that you can carry on for the rest of your life or whatever that looks like for you, not just the next 6, 8, 12 weeks. That's
Hmm.
bullshit. I don't like that. And so I started implementing things and I was able to, first off, kind of so my joints. So that was the first thing that I was able to kind of reduce very rapidly. Within a few months, I was pretty much pain free in all my joints.
Wow.
It does not it's not going to reverse things. So rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, those kinds of things that causes permanent damage to your joints. So I do have permanent damage in my toes. Like when that first started, I had no idea.
Mm.
But I don't have any pain. And like I said, I mentioned I went to UCLA twice. And then, oh, I forgot to mention. So that surgery they wanted me to do, they said that was a temporary thing, and I'll be back in about 2 to 3 years for a full hip replacement.
Oh
That was
God.
11 years ago. I have not
Oh.
done that. And so I'm glad. It's not saying that I'm going to need that in the future, but I didn't need that then. And so my joint pain kind of pretty much totally went away within a few months. And then about 4 or 5 months in, I started noticing my skin reversing. So my whole scalp was completely covered with psoriasis. And and then over the several months, it takes a little longer for skin, but I was able to reverse my skin naturally with no steroids. After about 6 to 9 months, completely reversed. And then after about a year, I was 95% symptom free, and that's where I live today.
Wow.
And is it something that I just, oh, well, that's it, I'm done? No, 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 no. This is the constant thing. And people say, isn't it terrible to have autoimmune disease? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's not ideal, believe me. But I don't mind it because it's a barometer for me for my health. When I know a joint's hurting or my skin or something else is going on, I am so hyper aware and in tune of my body and what I need that it allows me to stay in check. So I have a constant reminder of where my stress is at, where my sleep is at, where my diet's at, is that. So I have this constant reminder. Is it a burden? To me, it's not. Like I don't think of it like that. I think of it as just a barometer of my health. And has allowed me to manage that. So after going through my own journey, and then part of that was like, I'm proud of like where I'm at. And I'm like, I guarantee you, I'm probably not alone suffering with this stuff. So I just started kind of like sharing, got into some supplementation too, gut health supplements, which can be beneficial. That's a whole nother thing at a certain point in time. I'm not a huge proponent of, um, like supplements because a lot of times people think that, oh, I just take supplements and it replaces everything else. No, it doesn't work like that. And so at the right time, supplements can be beneficial. But so I got into that. And then as I started sharing people, it was cool. I started, people like ask for help. I'm like, oh, sure. Yeah. So like I chat with people and it just kind of grew. I'm like, man, I really actually like this. I like health. I like helping people. I'm a first responder and paramedic. I'm like, I like this stuff. I'm like, this would be kind of cool. I'm like, is there such thing as a health coach? I have no idea. And so I looked in, I'm like, oh, this is kind of a thing. So I formalized kind of what I was already doing. I did like, got a certified health coach. I got a gut health nutrition specialist certification and then a trauma informed certification too, just to have that, even though I'm well in this world, just to kind of formalize things. And then I started coaching. So I've been health coaching now for 5 years. So like one-on-one coaching clients I deal with, as well as for the last almost year and a half, I'm coaching. I do group health coaching for first responders and inpatient treatment at After Action down in San Fernando Valley. So I do sessions with them. So it's been cool to do all that privately. So group health coaches, first responders, and then one-on-one and doing this stuff. Because like I said, I like all things health on and off duty, and I don't feel like I'm an expert in anything. I'm simply somebody who made a whole bunch of mistakes
Mm,
and hopefully can help people help their health faster than maybe they would do that on their own.
yeah. Oh, I love all of that. And I think highlighting the last part too, what you said about you know it, you've been through it, you've experienced it, making you so culturally competent to work with people experiencing it now. Because I know that can be a frustration for people too, is not understanding or knowing what the job is like for one, but then what is the repercussion of the job or what comes with all of that. So it's so amazing that you have that connection and that openness. And I like how you mentioned a barometer, like seeing your autoimmune as a blessing rather than a burden, and how it tells you where you're at. And I've dealt with psoriasis for a long time, like since I
Oh
was
wow.
a kid, actually, and didn't know what it was at the time either. And my parents did the best they could with the medical advice and stuff they could get. But
Hmm.
I do the same exact thing as you is when my psoriasis shows up, I know something's out of line, like whether I'm not getting enough sleep or my schedule is too taxing, I'm not taking care of myself, my nutrition is off, like 100% exactly what you're saying is it's a great indicator for me to say like something is not lining up and I need to take a step back and look at like where can I intervene to make a change. And so feeling grateful that my body gives me those messages and that I listen to what it's saying and not just say like, ugh, well, that was annoying is like, no, it's telling me wake up,
Yeah.
dummy, and do something about it. Like change it.
Hmm.
So love that you brought that up. So powerful for people to hear that.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it too. And like you said, like having something like that forces you to tune into your body more. Because I mean, we're probably top of the list of ignoring stuff. And then if you're a parent and everything else, like it's very easy to ignore those kinds of things. And you said like, yeah, our bodies are constantly telling us stuff. It's whether we choose to listen or not.
Hmm.
I think is the biggest problem.
Yeah. I wonder if you can speak a little bit about where your mindset was when you started to try these things, all the, researching and learning and getting more educated and experimenting on yourself. But that I know sometimes people really struggle with the mindset and the willingness to do something. I often talk about how like you get so comfortable in your suffering that you doing something different and realizing that like you're not suffering. Um, like talk to me a little bit about that, like your willingness and your mindset when you got into your journey.
In regards to my physical health journey specifically, is that what you're
Like physical and mental. So like when
okay?
you decided like I know you were like your the physical side, the symptoms sucked and the like that we can easily hit a point where like enough is enough. I can't handle this anymore. But speaking to the mindset, or maybe the person that's out there right now struggling with that willingness mindset to like go to the difficult places, or there's a really beautiful quote of like the pain that ends all pain is like having to go to those root causes of things to actually or get into the box like you described earlier with EMDR. But that mindset that kept you showing up to your therapy sessions, that kept you from just giving up.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say like what kept me going was, I mean, a big part of it was my family too. I think was a big proponent of that, of understanding. And I had a young child at the time that was. I'm like I kept looking at what my future could look like, potentially. Like I knew the risks of like staring down the barrel of an autoimmune disease. I'm like, this could look bad. I could be in a wheelchair in 3 years. Like, so I had some pretty big motivation with that of like, no, 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 like I'm not doing that. And then going to doctors and understanding that the drugs that you could go on can lead to cancer and other things. And I'm like, this, I don't think that's the answer for me. And so I think a lot of it was looking at, and it's hard. Like it's there's so many days that you're just like wanting to give up, and but like that's not who I am or what I want to do. It's my family, my job. I enjoy this, and looking to where I know I can get to, and so I think that was a big thing that kind of kept me going was um I want to be a predictor of my own future and not be defined by what happened to me. And so that was kind of the thing that kind of hung over me to kind of keep me going. And then always that motivation versus discipline. To me, motivation's bullshit. There's no such thing. It's simply because that's super fleeting. You can't do anything off of motivation. It's simply just chipping away and doing those things to improve your life with making a therapy appointment and putting in the work and small changes over time. It's no different than like brushing your teeth, right? So, what does brushing your teeth every day do, or twice a day? Not a lot, right? Like, but if you're going to do it every day for a couple of years, you start to notice, like, oh, I don't have cavities, like, right? Like and you can't brush your teeth um, for 24 hours and not brush for the next 3 months, right? No, you have to do it every day, just a little bit every day to move yourself in that direction. So that was something that I kind of learned too, and that's how you make kind of sustainable changes too over time, is just chipping away and doing that and finding like your why. Obviously, we talk about like that. Why do you want to do this? And for me, it was my family, and it was for myself, and to call it contrarian in me is to prove the people that were telling me that I was messed up wrong, or that I can't do it myself too. So maybe that was part of it too. It's like I just didn't have that. I've had that happen to me multiple times before in my life of being trying to be or prove wrong, or showing them something else. So I don't know. It's a contrarian in me. Is it the teenager in me? I don't know. But I just didn't want to accept certain things and found my own way too. But I think motivation's fickle, and just kind of that discipline, and then having a big under reason to kind of move on. And my family, my son was a huge part of that, and my job. I think I'm like, I don't want to not be a firefighter or a paramedic anymore. Like that's I didn't I peeked into that veil of what that would look like for me, and I'm like, I don't want that. I like what I'm doing. I like the people I work with. I like the job. It's still a job at the end of the day, but I enjoy that, and I don't want to not do that. So I got to figure a way to deal with this. So that's kind of what kept me going, I'd say.
Yeah, great. I think you couldn't, like, nothing left to say. You said it perfectly. I want to ask one more question before we tap into like how do people follow you and do all that stuff. But I'm curious to hear if you can speak to how you've seen your relationships and or like you talked about your girlfriend at the time and now your wife,
hmm
which is awesome. But how did you notice this, like starting from after the accident happened and you saw like you were feeling the effects of the PTSD and all of that? How did it impact your relationships?
um, so the leading up to actually healing relation, like the bad part of it, how did it affect my relationship, would you say, or the the good
Yeah,
part?
like the I'm curious to hear about like the timeline of it all. So like when you were in the thick of it at that time, and
Okay.
then, like you talked about the barstool incident, and
Okay.
then kind of moving since then, but like giving people an idea of how powerful this is in your relationships, and like how those are also warning signals as well to show you how there is a mismatch or something is off or needs to be addressed.
Oh, totally. So I'll speak to the kind of before, and before and then after, we'll say after therapy or EMDR. So before, again, like just subtle things that I didn't even realize was an issue. So, like I mentioned, she was my girlfriend, now my wife, with our daughters and everything. But anyways, leading up to like so dating, meeting her family, and all that stuff, and we'd have family events, and she'd tell me like, "Hey, like, what's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You look pissed off." And then that would start a fight. Go, what do you mean I'm pissed off? Like, no, I'm not. Like, what the hell's wrong with like? So it just started this thing, and maybe I had, RBF, resting bitch face or something. But it was probably just what I was feeling in my body, but I didn't realize it. I just would write it off like, oh, we had, 2 or 3 calls after midnight or whatever. Like I just thought that was normal. Like, oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I'm just this. And then, but apparently it was written all over my face. And that's again not like me, but I just thought it was her or somebody else. And then you find yourself not wanting to do much too. Like I'm kind of an introvert anyways, so it takes a lot for me to want to go do social stuff anyway. Like I will, like it's
Mm-hmm.
fine, but it takes more effort than most. But I totally didn't want to do any of that stuff. Like I'd rather be more myself or do things. So maybe isolate more, and then you feel like something's wrong, or like my physical health would turn into like play too. Like my wife, when we were engaged and stuff, it's like my father-in-law wants to go, go take me for a walk or something. I'm like, oh shit, like my hip is killing me. Like, uh, oh, this is gonna suck. Like just those kinds of things. Or, yeah. And then I remember still, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was a family event. So my siblings there, and I remember like screaming for some reason. And my sister thought we growing up, we were the closest in age, so we'd always get into something with each other. But anyways, I remember like screaming or yelling at her or saying something very mean to her. Like in that, I remember a couple times that happened. Like I'd say like it was really weird that like I wanted to hurt her, which
Hmm.
I've never felt in my life. It was really weird. And then another time, I was another silly argument with my wife. Well, she wasn't. We were engaged, I think, then too. And something happened, and I literally threw a glass that hit the wall, which I've
Mm.
never done. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
near her, it wasn't anything. It was just out of anger, and I'm like just feeling completely out of control in my own body, which was weird. That was completely not like me at all to do any of that stuff. But it was really this deep, I always say this deep visceral anger that like you want to hurt somebody or punch a wall, which is weird, which is not like me at all. And I've never felt that way since, to that degree, but that's what it kind of what it felt like I think the biggest thing is just like completely abnormal for a feeling that you've ever had before too. Like that was something that really stuck out. So that was really odd to feel that. So did it mess up my relationships? I was able to mend the mistakes that I made, but like it was not good to feel those kinds of things. And granted, she didn't break up with me or divorce me or yet. But like obviously we got married and everything, so we were able to work things through. And like well, that's a lot of work too. It's not like just magically overnight, but
Yeah.
so that. And then on the back end of it, it's strengthened relationships, because of the fact that, again, like strengthened my health, right? I've recognized what the hell was going on. And by taking ownership of it too, right? When you don't take ownership or understand that, then you leave it out to powers to be. Like if you don't take responsibility for anything, it's someone else's fault. So but you relinquish all your power too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd much rather have power and understanding what I do. So then you have power to control that. And so it's strengthened it because now I have an understanding of what PTSD looks like. I have an understanding of how autoimmune disease, what health is, immune health, like, and all this stuff that's parlayed into my peer support role to be able to help with these things and understand resources that are out there. And then it's come into My own, I spoke briefly too. My sister's journey, she's dealt with, and I've been able to help her along with her journey with navigating a lot of this stuff like way faster than I ever did because I had all this knowledge, and so now we like exchange videos or Instagrams of stuff like, hey, check this out. Oh, this I never thought of that. Like it's turned into this thing. Um, and then it really helped me too. So my youngest daughter is diagnosed with called selective mutism. It's a form of social anxiety, and it's really and so I look at her as like how I would feel. So there's a lot of similar traits too, but it comes down to being fear and fearful in the body and
Mhm.
understanding how that works, especially in a young brain. And it's helped us and my wife and stuff, and I can help and she helps me too, and we understand kind of what the brain's doing
Mhm.
to give her what she needs. And then I'm like, it's just understanding like what know what I needed too. So and it's not so it's learning patience and understanding how things work versus just getting mad. Like I always when I teach too, well, especially at the Recruit Academy, I ask them like, hey, does anybody have any toddlers? And some guys raise their hands, and I'm like, do toddlers think rationally, or do they think very emotionally? Obviously, emotionally, right? Why? It's because they're like walking around with PTSD. Why? Because they don't have the front part of their brain working yet, so they're emotional, and that's what PTSD is. They're a little bunch of little toddlers that are working off their emotional part of their brain because they haven't clued into that too. So it's
Mhm.
just like kind of breaking things down, and I really like understanding things. So because once you understand a little bit more, then you can kind of give people what they need and not just freak out or make things worse, especially when you're raising your kids. And as you know, in the therapy world, we don't want to mess up our kids. So that's a whole other thing, right? ACEs and all that stuff too. So I would say, yeah, it was really hard to go through it with the relationships, and then on the back end, it's given me so much more so many more tools to connect with people, connect with my family, connect with my kids, and teach even more patience, which is apparent there's never enough of.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, and it sounds like so much more compassion to see when, like you mentioned, your daughter and the what she goes through and her
Hmm.
suffering, or anyone else. Like you have that compassion to show up for people in that way, which is just really super awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's been a journey and worth it.
Oh gosh, I know we're all
Mhm.
on the journey, you know.
Absolutely.
But it is pretty awesome. Well, tell us briefly, like what, because I know you have a big platform on social media that you are constantly putting so much good content out for people to dive into, and it's so relatable, I think, to everybody in our community, and even like families and spouses who support first responders. But tell us a little bit about like what your mission is with your um, coaching and your social media, and then tell us like how people can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So yeah, so I've been active on social media, and it's more about, like I said, it's putting like all those things that maybe we're finally starting to talk about, which is good. But just making it so that, and I really like to understand how things work and putting it out there. And the biggest like message, like I've said, is like how everything affects our physical and mental health. And that looks like a whole gamut of different things, but health is so much more than just exercise and nutrition. Could be a part of it, but right, but it's everything that we consume, it's everything that we're exposed to as first responders, and there's so many other things out there. And it's just and there's in the and it's amazing, just like yourself, though, is these resources that are coming available. There's so many things out there that are finally coming out to be able to help and give some more answers to people. Like I said, be a student and pick and choose and figure out what works for you. And that's kind of my thing is just, yeah, there's so many things that are more and more coming out there. And I do get people reaching out to me asking about resources and stuff, and there's so many more going out there too. So that's which is great. So there's nonprofits, and then there's all these platforms that are finally coming online too to normalize this stuff, and that's a big part of it is just understanding that it is normal, It's not ideal, it's not healthy, but it's normal. And so, in depending on what your health goals are or what your life looks like or context of your life is, you can pick and choose and do what fits into your life, and you can make the choice to put your health in a different direction if you so choose. So there's lots of things out there. So I'm actually I'm trying to be more, but I have following on like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, as well as Facebook too. So all those major platforms. And it's just Egan First Wellness is my handle, I think, on all those platforms. And then my website's firstwellnesshealth.com. And actually, I'm going to be launching my new website in a couple weeks. I have a gal working on it right now.
Cool.
So I'm excited about that. So yeah, it needs to be updated. So I built my own, and now I outsourced it to somebody who knows what they're doing, probably way more than I do, than a firefighter. We all think we can do everything ourselves anyways, but I'm like, I think it's time I could do that too. And like I said, I'm also part of After Action they're in San Fernando Valley, but they have an online following too and stuff. And I do group health coaching sessions for first responders and inpatient treatment. So I do weekly sessions. And they also have a women's only first responder in treatment center too. I think it's the only women only first responder treatment center too. Wow. So it's kind of cool that they're launching that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm pretty active with all that too. And I always say, like, you can email me, text me if my numbers, especially from my group health coaching, I give them all my number, but you can contact me through social media, email. Like I love chatting with people. You can DM me, I don't care. Like I try to answer everyone's questions or whatever they want to. So
yeah,
I'm kind of an open book and working on other stuff too, but obviously we're busy, and that's just like that side. So like I said, I'm also I actually have a meeting here in just a little bit for like peer support stuff I got to do too. So
nice.
like I do all that stuff, which is great. So I like being part of it. So no, that's where you can find me, and it's kind of what I'm chipping away at.
Awesome. Yeah, I encourage everyone to go out there and follow you because your content is just so good, and I think it's got so much value to offer people. So go follow and subscribe and all the things to you to keep up with what you're doing and connect with you, and encourage people to keep trying things. Like if one thing doesn't work for you, try something else. Like that, you're right. There's so much cool stuff coming down the pipeline with different kinds of non-traditional therapy. So try to take that old method or whatever movie you've seen and what you think therapy looks like, and just come in with a totally new mindset, because there's some really cool stuff that's making huge impact for people out there. So I love it. I love this conversation. This was so much fun, and I'm so grateful to you and the work that you're doing, and we're so happy to support you in any way. And yeah, just looking forward to connecting more in the future. So
Great. No, it was amazing. I really appreciate your time, Ashley. So no, it was awesome. Great to chat. And like you said, there's so many things out there and so many exciting things that's finally changing. And I think you and this podcast is part of that change. So thank you.
awesome. Sure. Yeah. Well, we will chat very soon. Thanks for joining us around the fire today. We appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I hope that you found value in our conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and share it with your community. Remember, we'll be sitting around the fire again soon, so keep an eye out for more episodes where we continue to explore the stories and insights of first responders. Until next time, stay safe and keep the fire burning.